Roddy, episode 9, welcome back.
James, good to see you. We had a little hiatus here in Crafted in the South during the summer, but I'm very happy to be here. Glad to be on the airwaves, on the video waves, because this is our first video. We're quite excited. It's going to be on YouTube and, of course, on the other platforms like YouTube, Apple, and Amazon. And today we have a very special episode, like all our episodes are, right? We have the famous orator, storyteller, John Donoghue. I think pretty much a lot of people know him in Hampshire. And should we get to it?
Let's do it. John, tell us who you are.
Good morning, James, and good morning, Roddy. My name's John Donoghue. I'm a past assistant provincial grand director of ceremonies in Hampshire and Isle of Wight. And I joined Masonry in 1990 in Clerkenwell in London. My mother lodge is Southern Star, number 1158. And I was introduced by two uncles who were both senior underground rank Masons. And when I joined, I was told that my journey consisted of 4 ceremonies, the 4th ceremony being the Royal Arch, of which I am a member. I'm also a member of many of the progressive orders: Mark, Ram, OSM, Royal Order of Scotland, Rose Choir, Royal and Select Masters, Scarlet Cord, Allied Degree, and so forth. So I'm pretty busy with all the progressive orders. But the thing that struck me most about Masonry when I joined was it was a charitable organisation. And like many Masons, I would put a £5 in the raffle, or I'd support somebody who was doing a walk or an abseil or whatever. And I'd put £5 or £10 in. But it wasn't until I actually went into hospital to give my daughter a kidney. And I donated a kidney in 2006. And while I was in the hospital, I seen all these children that were really ill and sick. And I thought, you know what? You can be better. You can do better. You're a better person than this. So I bought a bicycle and I cycled from Land's End to John O'Groats. And I did it in 9 days with other friends who helped me. One of them being David Vaughan, who's been an absolute stalwart all through the bike rides we did. David was always our backup man. And he's a Freemason, and a lot of credit to David, fantastic guy. But we raised a lot of money, and we actually put the money towards purchasing a dialysis machine for Dorchester Hospital. And I got the bug. And after that, I thought, you know what? Let's have a look. What can we do? Let's see what we can do. So I got crazy and I cycled from the Rock of Gibraltar to Great Queen Street. And people said to me, well, what was the hotels like, John? I went, what hotels? Slept in a tent. It raised a lot of money. A lot of money was raised, and I got involved with Life Lights to children's charities. But over the years, I probably raised somewhere in the region of about £200,000 for children's charities. And a couple of years ago, a friend of mine called Jock Rutherford contacted me, and he said, John, I'm in a bad place. I said, what's wrong? He said, my daughter Joanne has got terminal cancer. Could you come and talk to her? And I said, sure, but, what can I say? And I went to see this girl, and she's at home and not in a good place. And I said, Joanne, are you okay? She said, no, I'm dying. I said, okay. Is there anything I can do? And she said, no, there's nothing you can do. There's nothing anybody can do. I said, okay, what would you like to do? She said, I'd like to go around Europe. I said, well, that's easy. We can do that. I'll take you. And she looked at me like I was mad. But I took a photograph of her and got her to sign it. And I got on a boat and I went over to Holland. We cycled 10 countries in 10 days. And Dave Vaughan again came with us with his little van, and he was our backup man to look after us. But for 10 days, we travelled all around Europe. Lorenzo Marispin, another Freemason, came with us, and Lorenzo was fantastic. And we had some fun. And every night we would send photographs back with 2 glasses of wine and Joanne's picture saying, she's with a Swiss guy tonight dancing, or she's gone out with a German guy tonight to look at a house. Who knows what she's up to, but she's not coming home. She never comes home late at night. And finally, we found a place. We went over the Alps and we found a place called the Madonna del Gazzello Chapel. And in that chapel, they have photographs and bicycles hanging off the ceiling of all these young guys who'd been killed in races. and she's the patron saint of cyclists. And we asked the priest there, could we put Joanne's picture on the wall? He said, of course. So we put a picture on the wall, and we did a video in the church, and a video of the mountain, a video of the lakes. And I said, Joanne has met a very dark, handsome Italian man. She's very happy. And she's got married. And if you want to see her, this is now where she lives. And when I got back, I went to see her, and she said, wow, you gave me my dream. You made it possible. And 3 months later, she passed away, and her dad said that she wanted me to do the eulogy at her funeral, which I did. And it was strange because a lot of people were looking at us, looking at me, and I had this picture of her, and I'm telling the story of how Joanne and I had cycled around Europe, and there was people looking at me like, what's he talking about? This just doesn't make sense. But it made sense to me, and it made sense to her, and I felt like I'd given her something back. And doing various trips, I decided to do the Camino. And so I got in touch with the Provincial Grand Master of the Mark, a gentleman by the name of George Deacon. And I came up with probably a crazy idea. And the idea was very simple. Why don't we get all those who are no longer here, why don't we honour them? So how do we honour people who are Masons, who are no longer with us, who we loved, who are cherished memories? How do we get them to give money? I mean, think about it. How do we do that? And I came up with an idea. And the idea was to have the Masonic Keystone charity ride. So we had a stone, from just an ordinary stone from every different lodge that wanted to contribute. They would put their name on that stone, and I would take it to a place called Cruz de Ferro, which is on the Camino. And we would be laying that stone in memory of all the guys who'd served them lodges over the years, in their memory. And so I asked every lodge, would they give £250? I took 57 stones, and I took stones for individual people, and we raised £20,000 for the Masonic Benevolent Fund. And George was very, very happy with that. So it was quite emotional. Cruz de Ferro is a Christian site on the Camino. It's about 550 miles in. It's an iron cross that's been there since the 11th century, and pilgrims leave a stone. And, you know, can I just give you something that I wrote? I'd like to see this is something I wrote on the Camino. And I want you to, this is how I feel inside. Life offers us all a way to spend our time. Time is precious. It is our most important commodity. It cannot be bought, it can only be acknowledged. We are all born knowing only life. Sitting in a train, waiting at a station. On that train sits your mum and your dad, your brothers and your sisters, your uncles and your aunts. Friends and companions who have enriched your lives. As the train stops, a family member or friend departs, and the seat becomes empty. A lover's gone. The cherished memories of those who are no longer with us, just an empty seat. That space becomes full again, perhaps with a partner that you meet, the children that you bring into the world, perhaps your grandchildren. The Camino makes you reflect on all of these things, and is a journey of the mind. Every day you meet somebody on the Camino who's carrying a burden. Sometimes it is the loss of a family member or a close friend. We share our stories, we share a glass, but most importantly, we share our humanity. Brotherly love, relief and truth, perhaps. The Camino teaches you that faith, hope and charity. Faith that your God will walk beside you. Hope that you have the strength and determination to complete your journey, and to realize that charity is the greatest gift of any human being. To all my companions and friends, God bless. Thank you for being with me on this special journey on the Camino, and I look forward to seeing you soon. This is my final post, One Camino, from John and Bob, two very tired old amigos. And the Camino taught me that, you know, it's really important. And I do have this mantra that I try and stick by, and people laugh at me, but it's, you know, on my journey through life, if I can do a good deed or a kindness to any fellow human being, let it be now. Let me not defer nor neglect my duty, for I, like you, will not pass this way again. And I really believe that, guys. I really do. For me, I think...
I mean, that is fantastic. I really thank you for sharing those experiences. I really empathize with the Camino. I've I've seen it. I haven't walked it, but I've seen the burdens that now reflecting the burdens that people are walking with, and they want to basically offload, I guess, through that walk, through the reflection.
What is it? I don't know what it is. Tell me what it is.
Let me explain. The Camino is it's a pilgrimage. It's called the Way of St. James. There are 9 Caminos, different points. You can walk the Camino in Portugal. You can walk it the northern route, which I've done. You can do the French route. But they all end up at one place, Santiago del Compostela. It was there that St. James, who was an apostle of Christ, came to Spain and actually preached Christianity. He went back to Jerusalem and the Romans cut off his head, and his followers picked up his body and they wrapped it up in a cloth and sent it back to Spain. And the story goes that on the way to Spain, the ship was wrecked and the body was lost at sea, and it was found on the shore covered in seashells. And the seashell is the way of the Camino, because you would, as a pilgrim, you would hold a seashell in your hand to get food or drink on the way. And people who do the Camino today, on the way, you can do the luxury way and stay in hotels and all that, and we didn't do that. We stayed in what they call albergs. So you would go into a room. I went in a room, there was about 120 people in there. And you went and had your shower, and there was all bunk beds. You'd put your sleeping bag out, and we'd sit round and we'd share communal food, and people would tell their stories. And I met a guy there who was nearly 80. He was from Germany. He was on his 6th Camino. He said, John, he said, every time I walk this Camino, my wife, who I lost, is with me. I can feel her presence. I met another guy who'd lost his wife through cancer, and he was in his early 40s. He was walking it with his 2 children. I met another guy who was blind, and he was being led by his brother. He said it was so important. The Camino is the most emotional and uplifting experience. I would recommend, if you haven't done it, it's something that you should look at. Somebody should put it on your bucket list. It's something that people should do.
John, so when you're going on the Camino, and also when you're doing all this charity work, I feel like there's 2 things that crisscross here: being an almoner / charity as well, because you're being now speaking to you, and you're telling us this story. You're actually an almoner for the living, and also for the people that are not here anymore on earth, sharing with us anymore. I've never seen it like that. And I think that there isn't a lot of light shed being an almoner. And I'll get back to the charity. What is an almoner? Because we have non-Masons listening to this podcast, and this goes out everywhere in the world, and people are just curious. And it's, you are an experienced Mason. You're an experienced Mason in so many offices around Hampshire, Grand Lodge, or just in general. And then we'll get into the charity part, because it is intertwined. So our listeners could know.
Okay. Well, being an almoner, every lodge has an almoner, and it's the almoner's job, I should say, to take care of the brethren in the lodge. So therefore, if somebody's sick, if somebody's not well, you would visit them. You would, a lot of lodges, like I do it with Vigilante, my chapter. I'm not the almoner, but I've just recently sent a nice bottle of whiskey and a gift card to a chap who's had an operation. The almoner is to take care of people, but taking it even on a bigger step, we have the Masonic Charitable Foundation, and we have festivals. And lots of people say to me, I have a festival again, John. It's important to have a festival. And the reason is this. Let me explain. Charities can earn the money, but the almoner can't spend what he hasn't got. So therefore, he needs the money in the box. Now, as an almoner, if you came to me and you were seriously ill, you'd had a stroke, you'd been in a car accident, something had happened to your wife, you'd lost your job. If you come to me, then I look at your case and I take it forward to the Masonic Charitable Foundation. I work for the Masonic Charitable Foundation as a volunteer. I'm a visiting volunteer, which means that I will get a case number for you, and then I will come to your home and visit you. And if you'd had a stroke, if you were hospitalized, I will do everything I can to make sure that you get looked after financially and emotionally. I will do everything I can to ensure that you're cared for. That's what an almoner should do, care for his brethren.
Mhm.
A bit like a shepherd, really, caring for the sheep. You know, it's basically
Absolutely.
your job to make sure that they're okay. You know, emotionally.
Yeah.
And I think in every lodge, we talk about, you know, when we talk about lodge members, there are three guys in every lodge that should work. To me, I call them the Trinity. And that's the mentor, the membership officer, and the almoner. And if them three work together, then we don't lose people. People get looked after. And to me, that's the Trinity. But an almoner's job is incredibly important, incredibly important.
Yeah. When it comes in your experience, is giving always about money, or is there a different currency at work?
There is one of the biggest currencies that we have, and people should remember it. And I'll explain this. When you join Masonry, when anybody joins Masonry, you hear, oh, tonight James Burns is going to do the northeast corner. There is no northeast corner. It does not exist. It's a place on the carpet. What you're actually receiving is the charity charge. And you're asked the question, were you divested? I was. If you'd not been so divested, would you have given? And you reply, yes. So you're asked straight away about giving financially. But further on, you receive a charge. And in that charge, they say to you, the two elements which have been most illustrated, benevolence and charity. Now, benevolence, if you think about it, is expressing kindness. And that's not just through finances. That's picking up the phone, making sure that your brethren are okay. That's picking up the elderly guy who can't drive anymore, making sure that he can get to lodge, knocking on his door, picking him up. That's getting his shopping for him. That's being a human being and a good person. That's all part of being an almoner, in my book anyway.
Right. And then what's something about the work of an almoner / charity that most brethren don't see, but they really should?
Well, I think we get in every lodge, we get the story every time. So it's the master's list. It's the master's charity. And so whoever's in the chair, they support that charity. But we can do so much more as Masons. Now, I believe, personally, I spoke to the Masonic Charitable Foundation. I said, festivals, people get tired. You know, here it comes, here it goes. Every 11 years, we swing round. So why don't we do something different? So what we do now with the MCF, we do what's called continuous giving. So if you sign up on the www.org website for the MCF, you will see a list down there and it says continuous giving, which means that you can sign up and you could pay, say, for example, £10 a month, and you pay that forever. So immediately, once that's done, you've done it. Now, if we all did that, if everybody just did that, which is £2.50 a week, it's not even the price of a cup of coffee. If we all did that, believe you me, the coffers would be full. We receive at the moment, in 2016, I was part of that festival. We raised 7.7 million for the Royal Masonic Benevolent Institute, for the Royal Masonic Trust for Girls and Boys. Sorry, 7.7 million. Never been done before, probably never be done again. But from 2016 to 2021, when we were not in festival, Masons were looking after local charities. But the first year, from 2016 to 2021, we received £564,000 a year from the MCF into this province. And from 2021, that first year that we started the festival, we received 764,000. 2022
Wow.
It was 800,000, and at present it's 1.2 million per year we are receiving. Let me tell you something, guys. We as Masons will not put back in during this festival what we're taking out in Hampshire. In Hampshire,
And I think that's an important point. That's an important point to take away, isn't it? I think, John, that a lot of people might think that charitable donations disappear off into an account and they're used to benefit people whom we won't interact with on a daily basis. But actually, a massive portion of that money comes back and affects people around us.
Huge amounts coming back, huge. As I say, if we put in, I don't know, if we put in 5 or 6 million at the end of this festival, we're probably taking out something like 8-9 million out of the MCF. And so, you know, I personally feel that, and I spoke to the MCF about this, the continuous giving to me is the answer. Everybody just said, you know, I'll do £10 a month and forget about it. It's done. If everybody did that all across the UK, the difference would be phenomenal. It's like I looked at Lifelights and bless them. They look after children who are on limited time. And these kids will never see adulthood. And every year they're out there chasing to try and get some money. And I said, do you know what? If Grand Lodge said, do you know what? If we said to everybody, look, Lifelights is a Masonic charity. It's something that we set up and non-Masons can support it. Why don't we raise our fees by £5? So everybody pays £5. We've got 170,000 members across the UK. If everybody paid £5 on their fees and that went to Lifelights, their problem is solved. Little and often is always better than a big lump. Little and often will succeed every time. You know, and it's a fact. And that's why I say the continuous giving. And the almoners, bless them. You know, I've been to lodges and they've said to me, well, I haven't got an almoners fund, John. What do I do? And they're depending on the raffle or depending on when the hat goes round. You know, you've been in lodge and we have the arms collection. And everybody puts in £1. And they've been putting in £1 since Noah was a boy. You know, everybody's been putting in £1. So one of the lodges I was in, I said, we'll stop the arms collection. I don't want it anymore. Let's get rid of it. And they went, we can't do that. I said, no, I'm the master. That's what we're going to do. And what we introduced is that when you pay for your meal, you pay your arms. Our arms went up by 400% because people were paying £5. Some were paying 10. Most people paid 3. But people weren't putting £3 in the bag when it went round. But when we did it that way, and I had a few people say, oh, yeah, but the treasurer will know. I said, so yeah, but he'll know if I put in £1 and Harry put in £10. I said, he's not going to record. At the end of the day, he has to work with discretion. And it worked. The arms fees went up by 400%. That lodge now, it's called brevity. That lodge now can, when somebody's birthday, a bottle of wine will arrive. If it's the wife's birthday, flowers arrive, cards arrive. They can afford to do it. But they couldn't afford to do it before. And Vigilante's in the same boat. Vigilante Rose Quarter chapter, we've now got an armless fund. And I have to say, there is a guy called David Hewitt, who is the provincial treasurer in the Mark. David came in, I asked David to join, and he was absolutely fantastic in getting our accounts up to the level there are today. We're all internet banking. David's done an immense job, and I congratulate him on that. He needs to be thanked. But you can't, you see, the almoner, with all the best will in the world, you can't do anything without the money. It's like the NHS. If you haven't got the money, you can't do the job. So one hand has to help the other.
If units find new ways of raising money just by doing something innovative, that can have a big impact on the amount of money you raise for charities without feeling like it, potentially.
Absolutely. I'd like to see it, personally, I would like to see our province, which is broken into 6 segments because there's 6 APGMs. I'd like to see each part of the province do something for charity, something different. Jump out of an aeroplane, abseil, cycle to Paris. I don't know. Do something. Take on a challenge. When we had COVID on down here in the southwest, our provincial Grand Master was a chap called Leon Whitfield, who unfortunately became very ill and died very quickly from a terrible illness. But Leon phoned me and he said, John, how are we going to raise money during COVID? I said, tents. He said, tents? I said, yeah. Get everybody to put a tent in their garden, and we'll say to them, you sleep the night in the tent, but you pay £10 fees for sleeping in the tent, and we'll put it in a box. So I put a tent in my garden. I did 31 nights in the tent. Leon put a tent in his garden. Wow. Whether he actually slept in it or not, I don't know. But we had pictures of everybody all across our area with tents, and everybody was sleeping in tents. This was the gig.
That is a fab idea.
Every night you did in a tent, you had to pay £10. Now, we raised a lot of money, and that money our new APGM was a chap called Chris Lockwood, who's a really lovely guy. But that went to the hospitals, and I believe that they bought iPads for the nurses because they couldn't get home, you see, because of the COVID. And the other thing is we got in touch with Southwest Trains, and we asked them, could we look at their lost property department? Because they got bikes. Bikes are useful. So we got a load of bikes and we repaired them, and they went to the local hospitals for people who didn't have bikes, who'd had them stolen. So you just got to think outside the box. You can do anything. Anything's possible. You know?
I do wonder how much money we might raise in the north.
Go on, sorry.
I wonder how much money we might raise in the north central area if we could get our APGM and area chairman, Paul Hilliard and Maurice Doe, to jump out of a plane. I think we could sell some tickets for that. I do. I think we could.
I think you'd get a lot of money. I'm not sure if Maurice would jump out of a plane, but I like Maurice.
If your charity involves a little giving, right? That would be his donation.
You could upsell down a Spinnaker Tower, couldn't you? I mean, I'll never go with that.
There we
I'll do
go.
that. But there's lots of things that you can do. And there's lots of things, you know, it should be fun. Masonry should be fun. What we did at Vigilante, give you an idea, our last meeting, and you know what Angel Accepted writes like, it's very austere, you know, very, you know, strict. And I said, we've got to lighten this up a bit. So what we did, when we got to the festive board, we played Roy Orbison singing California Blue while we wore dark sunglasses. And it created a storm. Actually, honestly, it created a real storm of laughter. And after that meeting, I met people 2 weeks later, and they came up to me and said, you know what, that was so memorable. Didn't even think about the ceremony. They said, just this festive board was great fun. And I think you need to do that. We need to, why would you want to go out and be miserable? Why would you want to spend money going somewhere and sitting there being miserable? You want to go there and be happy. That's why you're in Wolsey chapter, Roddy. That's why I'm in Wolsey chapter.
Absolutely. The best chapter in the universe.
Yes. And, you know, our DC there, I think it's changed, but it was always Glyn Evans, you know, Glyn. And Glyn's quite vocal. But you go there and you're always guaranteed a fun evening. And I think we've got to realise in Masonry, it's moved on. I'm 71 this year. I'm an old man. But guys want to pay by backs. It's all electronic, you know. I turn up and guys are paying with their Apple Watches, and people don't carry coins anymore or go to the hole in the wall. They don't do that. It's a different world. And as much as I love the tradition of Masonry, and it is important, I think we also have to move with the times, because if we don't, we're never going to attract the young people. It's not going to be for them. It's got to be fun. We've got to be a little bit less strict. We can still keep our traditions. They are important. And what we do is important. But we need to analyse what we do, and we can be more effective in keeping people on board. You would go to Wolsey chapter for every meeting because you know, Roddy, every meeting you're going to come away with a good feel factor. And people
100%.
Say to me,
that is verified.
Yeah. And people say to me, well, yeah, it's got too many members and everybody's going, and they'll never get through the chair. If they want to go through the chair, they'll join somewhere else. They're going there because it's enjoyable. That's why they go in there. And you don't want to go somewhere where it's not enjoyable.
Absolutely. And I really, you hit something I'm very passionate about having less friction or no friction at all. And I think it's something that's very important for charity. And you just said the recipe, I think for giving is when you have a chapter or a lodge that is happy, you get the guys when they're their happiest and you ask for donations and they will give a donation. We also have to story tell, like you're saying, John, what is that money used for? It's invested in our own, but it's also invested in our families. It's invested in our community. It's so dynamic. It's so dynamic. And that's the
Let me tell you a little story. Let me tell you a little story. Masonry was formed on the 24th of June, 1717 in St. Paul's Churchyard by 4 lodges. The first Grand Master was Anthony Sayer. Our rule then was to feed the hungry, clothe the poor, and bind up the wounds of the afflicted. And I often wondered what that meant. And what it meant was that it was to get a physician. So in 1727, we got our first petition. And we fed the hungry, and we clothed the poor. And then what we did is we got a physician to visit sick people because there was no national health. That was the start of what we became, the Faith, Hope and Charity section. Now, in I'm not sure the exact date, but around about 1780, King George VI decided to have this huge ball. It was the most magnificent ball you've ever seen, and everybody in Freemasonry was invited. Dukes, lords, earls, monarchs, you name it, they were all there. If you were a Mason, it was the place to be. And a guy called Charles Bartholomew Ruspini, who was an Italian dentist who worked in the Vatican. He worked for the Pope. He was invited. And he got off the boat in London and he walked through the streets and he see children sleeping under handcarts and in doorways, dressed in rags with black faces, starving. And he was appalled because this was one of the biggest empires in the world. And he collected 60 children, all girls, and he walked into this ball and he said, Your Majesty, these are your subjects. Well, the king was horrified and obviously embarrassed. And on that day, the Royal Masonic Trust for Girls was formed and a school was built, I believe, in Croydon. And these 60 children were put into a school and housed and clothed and fed and given an opportunity in life. Some 20 years later, that became the Royal Masonic Trust for Girls and boys were introduced. So that was our first Masonic charity. Our second charity was about 1858. A guy called Richard Crucifix, who was the Junior Grand Warden of England, looked at all the elderly and he said, we're looking after children, but what about the elderly? There's no pensions. And so he formed the Royal Masonic Benevolent Institutions, which gave us 40 homes across England. And these were so that elderly people would live in some kind of, with some kind of dignity before they died, and they'd have food, they'd have clothing, they'd have warmth, they'd have light, they'd have comfort. And so that became the Royal Masonic Benevolent Institution. And then round about 1980, they said, well, we're looking after the young and we're looking after the old. What about the chaps in the middle? So we formed the Grand Charity. The Grand Charity looks after Freemasons, normal guys, normal age, middle age, and their families. And then finally, we brought in the Royal Samaritan Fund, which looked after disasters here in the UK and worldwide. And what Grand Lodge did is they got the 4 charities and they put them all together and put an umbrella over them and called them Masonic Charitable Foundation. And so they've got 4 pots. And depending on which pot needs filling, that's where the money goes. And brethren don't know that.
Yeah, agreed. And this is when I got initiated, John. I'll never forget my festive board. Of course, it's always going to be very special for everyone because you're inducted into the brotherhood. But there was this brother, and he was very emotive on why he was very thankful for Freemasonry. And I think I felt very lucky that I had someone to espouse all the ideals, but then such a story so personal that the MCF helped him get his mom a heart transplant. And this brother was in tears, but it was so beautiful. And again, that was a layer of Freemasonry that I had no idea about. And it's something that every Freemason can agree on. We cannot shout enough of our charitable giving and our service as well. It's extremely important. And just from a new member perspective, those are the stories that we should be telling our potential young brethren that want to come into a craft, because they are more charitable and they're more conscious about giving to society and to the communities.
I went to see a child. His name is Jack. Jack was a 10-year-old boy, feisty, full of life, full of love. He was with his grandmother, staying there, and he was playing football in the garden. And his grandmother had a pond. And she went out into the garden to get him for his lunch, and Jack was lying face down in the pond. The pond was deep and he was drowning. She got him out of the pond. He was unconscious, but she'd been a midwife and she knew what to do and gave mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. And he was taken to hospital. And the doctors said to the parents that Jack's brain had been starved of oxygen and Jack had lost 2 of his senses. Jack would never speak again, nor would Jack ever see. He was blind and dumb, and that was Jack's future. Now, Jack would hold on to his mother and he would lick her neck because that he could taste his mum. And so he would stick with his mum like glue. She couldn't move without him because if she left him, he couldn't call for her and he couldn't see her. So there he was in a black box, trapped. And he became very frustrated and then got to the point where his parents felt that he was becoming violent. They didn't know what to do. So the MCF stepped in and they got an expert who deals with these things. And he said to the parents, you know, Jack can't see you and he can't speak to you, but Jack can hear you. So they taught Jack how to speak on a little small computer, and the computer would speak to him. So he would write, I love you, Mummy. And the computer would say it. He could hear the computer say it and she would reply. And then he had communication. Now, the point is, going forward, Jack will never be the Jack he was, but with the support that he was getting from the MCF and the family were getting, eventually Jack will have a better life. But at the moment, he's been taught how to communicate, and that's made a huge difference, because his mother can leave the room and he can say, I'm hungry, or I want a drink, or where are you, Mummy? You know, or can we do this? Can we do that? He can talk through the computer, and the computer speaks. He hears it speak, so the computer becomes his voice. So he's got communication. We couldn't do that without the MCF. I'll tell you, I got hit by a lorry. Don't want to get hit by a lorry on a bicycle. And I ended up spending 2 years in a wheelchair. So I had 2 years in a wheelchair. Not a lot of fun. And my savings were almost gone. I worked for the railway and they paid me for so long, but then like everything else, it stops. And then the government gives you very little to live on. And I found the MCF, and a lady called Sally came round and she said, we'll look after you. I said, well, you know, what do we do? We're going to have to, I need an operation. And to get the operation, it was about 49,000. So basically, we were going to sell our home and buy something smaller, buy an apartment or something. What do I do? And she said, leave it with me, I'll sort things out. And she did. Within 10 days, I was at Newhall Hospital, seen a specialist, and I had an operation. And I got a metal plate put in my back. The operation cost about 49,000. I didn't pay a penny. Within 3 days of the op, I was walking. Not great, but I was walking. And within 3 months, I was back to riding a bike again. So I'm very thankful, very thankful. So that's why I do what I can to help the MCF. I do what I can to help the charities, because without the charitable donations, the almoner can't do his job. So the two work hand in hand. One has to earn it and one has to spend it. You know, it's a fact. That's how it works. Without one, you can't operate the other. And Masons, you know, need to be, in my eyes, I think Masons need to realise that, you know, when I hear this, well, I can't afford it, and I can't afford this, and I can't afford it, and things are difficult. I'm on a fixed income. I make myself afford it. I mean, at the end of the day, if you're really, really honest with yourself, if you wanted to play golf at Brockenhurst Golf Club tomorrow, it's $2,000. You don't pay on the 1st of January, you certainly don't play on the 2nd. So when you join Masonry, people need to know that there is an expense involved. What I've suggested to a lot of the lodges that I've been involved with is, if somebody pays their fees on day one, like they do at Brevity, they will pay £15 a month. So you've already paid for this year, but you're paying £15 from January onwards. So come December, just like you pay your direct debits from your bank for your gas, your electric, come December, you've got the money in the box, which drops into the box on January the 1st. You're paid up next year already. And you keep the process. So all the time, you're always a year ahead of yourself, which means that should you ever decide to leave the lodge, they will have to transfer back to you what earlier. You're never in debt. And at £15 a month, it's like young guys say to me, well, that's reasonable. I don't want to get a bill up for £180 or £200 in January. Who wants a bill for £200 in January? But if you pay £15 a month, you can forget about it. It's done. It's easy.
Yeah, absolutely. That is. These are the ideas that just make everything more flexible in Freemasonry.
Yeah, need to be flexible.
Yeah. And accessible as well, because you're very right. It does kind of hurt when you're coming in January and you're gonna pay your lodge subs and then your side orders. It's like, oh, all right, you got to think about that. But I couldn't agree with you. If we had monthly installments that included a donation, it's completely doable.
I have 16 units I'm in, 16, and it works out about £55 a month. And someone might say that's a lot of money, but if I bought a packet of cigarettes, it's £16 a packet. You know,
Exactly.
You've got to look at where you're spending. If you went into, I don't drink anymore because I've only got one kidney, but if you went into a bar, you could easily spend £30-40 on a round of drinks. So you just think about where your money's going. And if you pay everything on that standing order, which is what I've done, I set it up through an American bank called Chase. I got involved looking at Chase.
Yep.
All my units on them, did all my standing orders. They do it, everything every month. I put in like £70 a month, 55 goes out every month, and there's a little residue left in there. And I can forget about fees. I don't have to worry about them. And people say, oh, you always pay on time. I said, because it's paid in advance. And someone says, yeah, well, what happens if you die? Well, if I die, then my widow or my wife will get some money back, I hope. Or if not, they'll put it in the charity box. Does it really matter? We're not talking thousands, are we? You know, we're talking a couple of £100.
Yes. Yeah.
Let's not get.
I agree with you. John, I mean, I have one question for you, and I think you'll give me a good answer. What's one small act of kindness that you think that could be done by brethren that could ripple out beyond lodge?
Well, you've been into the community, or just in the lodge?
Into lodge, community, or within ourselves. I have one, but I'm curious I wanted to ask you that because you're deep in this.
Well, I think within the lodge, the most important thing is to communicate. And I think if we communicate with our older guys and our younger guys, I mean, I communicate with a guy called Dennis Gilbert, bless him. He's a lovely old man, very, very knowledgeable. He's 86. But I speak to Dennis practically every day. And when we have a lodge meeting, I give him a ring and I say, Dennis, I'm coming around to pick you up. I went and got a wheelchair off eBay. So I got it in the back of my car. I put him in the wheelchair and away we go. And I take him up to London and I take him everywhere he wants to go, because if I didn't do it, it wouldn't happen. And it's important that it happens. So that's in the lodge. But in the community, I think, and this is one way I think we could get out there. Roger Maber made these wonderful pictures showing all these different Masons saying, Masonry's given me integrity, Masonry's given me confidence. You've seen them. I'm sure you've seen them.
Yes.
And they're put in the centers. Well, to me, we're putting in the places of the converted. What I think is we should have photographs like that, and we should put them in the hospitals and saying, as Freemasons, we donate to the Teddies for Loving Care. Any child that comes into an A&E hospital for any condition, the Teddy is given by us. And I think that's one way of reaching out, because the most treasured possession anybody has is their children and their grandchildren. And I think the Teddies for Loving Care is something that we should use with photographs and posters and put them in the hospitals and the places where we donate to children. That's just one of my thoughts. What do you think?
I absolutely think about, I'm with you. You said communication. For me, it's always been about intentional brotherhood. And it's easy. Just send a message to a brother that you haven't spoken to in a while. I got up this morning. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to send a message just to say hello to our almoner, because he is a captain of a ship and he's on the ferries and he can't make it most times to our lodge meeting. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to say hello to see how he is. Brothers appreciate that. People appreciate that. We're in our lodge, like we all should be communicating with each other all the time.
Well, let me ask you a question. What you've put up this morning, there's three of us on here speaking, right? If we set up a system in the province for the almoners, somebody to teach them, we could actually reach out to all the old guys who can't make it once a fortnight, or a Sunday. I used to do this on a Sunday morning with a different system. And we would get all the old guys on the system. I used to ring their daughters up and say, look, can you set it up for them? And they would. And you could set them up and we'd have 22 faces on the screen and we'd be saying, how you doing? How's things?
Yeah.
Are you okay? Because the thing is, what you have to remember is if I phone you and say, are you okay? And you say, yeah, I'm great. But if I knock on your front door and you open the door, I'll see the real you. I'll see the you that, because on the phone, you might just say, well, I'm okay, and you're not. But when I knock on your front door and you open the door, then I see the real you. And that's why with this form of communication, I think we should reach out there. And I think it's a positive thing to do. Do you not think so?
I couldn't agree more. I agree with you. Yeah, absolutely. And we should do that. And then just to wrap up this episode, you've just given us such a fantastic view of yourself, why charity is so important to you. If in 20 years, what would you like people to say?
I'll be gone. In 20 years.
What would you like people? Yes, about your work. What would you like to brethren or people? What would you like them to say about the work you've done?
Nothing for myself, but I'd like people to realize that, our time here on earth is short. Everybody's important, and everybody has a story to tell. Some are storytellers, some are givers, but for me, I'd like to think that my legacy is that people will look at me and say, you know what, he wasn't a bad guy. He had a good heart and he did his best. And that's all I can do. It's try my best. And that's all I've ever done is try my best. And some people, if they think, oh, what is it he wants? I don't want anything. What I want to do, and I've always wanted to do this, is whatever I try and do, I like to be successful at it. And I like to get the good out of it. I just think that in Freemasonry, we need to be, how can I find the right words? We need to care more about each other. That's what I'd like to see. People care more about each other. Because at the end of the day, if we don't do that, we're finished. And it's important that you do that and care about everybody and try and make it, and try your best to make a difference. If you can make a difference in people's lives, then you've achieved something. And it doesn't have to be about money. It can be about a phone call. It can be, you can shed a tear with somebody. You can put an arm around someone. You can give someone a hug. You can tell someone that you care about them and they're not forgotten. Because, so many guys I've met, and I've met some really lovely elderly guys older than me, that they've lost their wives, their children live, in Canada or America, and they don't see their grandchildren, and they're on their own, and they're lonely. And so I think what we have here is a way of reaching out to them and reminding them, of who they are. And we should always send people a summons, even if they don't come. Send them a summons. Let them know what's happening in the lodge. And a little newsletter is always useful. Newsletters. But I don't know. I'd like to think that people just think that I was a caring individual. That's all I think. I had a good heart. Nothing more.
That is fantastic. John, I wanted to thank you so much for describing the beating heart of Freemasonry, because it's quite subtle. Parts of charity, also being an almoner. And I also wanted to tell our brethren, maybe just newer almoners, and also just the almoners that have been almoners for a while. If you go on the Masonic Charitable Foundation website, there are brilliant resources for almoners and for the brothers that are passionate about charity. All the resources are there. I was looking on there. I was just, this is absolutely fantastic how an almoner could get basic training on when a brother has lost his job, is going through a divorce, has lost someone really important, in their life. There are so many resources that we have in Freemasonry that sometimes they go untapped because we're too in it to see what's out there for us. And I really wanted to thank you for those heartfelt experiences that you have shared with us today, because I'm sure there's many more, and there will be many more to come. And John, thank you so much for all the work that you've done for Freemasonry. You just left me astounded. I'm astounded. I'm thankful, and it was just a great conversation with you today, John. And James, do you have anything else to add?
No, I think that's a wonderful note to finish on. But John, just one question from me. For anyone who's listening in now, particularly someone who's newer to Freemasonry, and they're inspired to give a little more, to do a little more, having heard you today, who should they speak to? Where should they go? As lodges start to meet again in the late part of the year, what do they need to do?
What I would suggest to anybody now is if you contact the Provincial Charity Steward, which is a chap called John Pearson, John would ask you, he really needs this help. He would like every lodge to become a member of the TLC, a patron. Now, if your lodge becomes a patron for the Teddies for Loving Care, it will cost your lodge £100. I mean, it's a raffle, but it's a continuous giving. So if you're prepared to say, we'll do that annually, all of a sudden, on your lodge summons, you'll have a logo that says you're a Teddy for Loving Care patron, and your lodge will be given £100 a year. Now, as an individual, if you want to give to the Teddies for Loving Care yourself, you can get a really nice gold badge. I've got one. It's not real gold, but it's a big, like a gold badge, big teddy bear, and it says you're a patron. Now, you sign up. Oh, it's really expensive, guys. Oh, it's terrible. It'll cost you £10 as an individual per annum. So if you was to sign up and got all the members of your lodge to sign up as a patron, every member for £10 per annum. I mean, guys, come on, it's nothing. It's pennies. That would make a huge difference, because at the end of the day, I think, as I've said earlier on, John every year is looking for somewhere between £8,000 and £10,000. And you'll go to a lodge and I'll put in £500, £600, £700. That's great. But what he needs is continuous. And to do the continuous giving, you need to become a patron. So if we've got 250 lodges and everyone became a patron, that's 25 grand a year. Well, that ain't going to happen. But let's say we got 50%, that's 12.5 grand. And then we get our side degrees, our progressive orders involved. And there, to do that, it's £50 a year. Just think about it. It's not a huge amount. It's like a dripping tap. It will fill the bath. Just think, It doesn't have to be huge amounts. But I would say to the young guys, come on, let's do something different. Let's windsurf from Southampton to the Isle of Wight. Let's windsurf. Or do it on a set of skis. Come on, let's go down and have a bit of fun. Why not? Or abseil.
I agree.
Let's do something like that. At the end of the day, there's lots of things we can be doing, and there's 6 areas. And I would put a challenge out to every area. And I would say to every area, including the North Central, come on, guys, put your thinking hats on. Let's do something for the festival or for a local charity. And if we did that every year, it would become the thing, wouldn't it? It would become our gig. And we could do something like that, and we could throw a big barbecue in a field. We could have a huge barbecue in a field, bring all the families along. And because I've done that in the past, when I've done a big cycle ride, we've done a big barbecue at the end. All the families turn up in the field. Go on, what have we done? And the kids are there, and someone's just jumped out of an aeroplane, or someone's abseiled, or whatever. And we raised the money for the charity. John Pearson will get John Pearson along because he'll enjoy that. And say, John, we've raised X amount for the Teddies for Loving Care. And let's put the posters in the hospitals. Let them see who we are. That's what we need to do. If I had my way, I'd have the posters in the bus stations. I'd have them in the train stations. I'd have them in the hospitals. I'd have them in the ambulance services, in the fire stations, even in the churches. Teddies for Loving Care, pictures of us. This is what we do. Children, children, children. It's got to be the answer. That's my thoughts.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant. John, thank you so much for this interview. And James, your time to close it.
Thank you, James.
Yeah, John, thank you. It's been a fantastic interview and a great insight into one of the founding principles of Freemasonry. So thank you for your time. Roddy, another one in the books. It just occurred to me as John was closing then, that the next time we record an episode, our lodge will have met for the first time again in the autumn season. So that is something to look forward to.
Absolutely. The new Masonic year is upon us, and it only could go really well. As always, it's going to be fun.
It is. And of course...
Which is your lodge? Which is your lodge?
Wolsey Lodge in Winchester. Lodge and chapter, both of us.
Yes.
Just remember one thing. Wolsey chapter is the finest chapter in the universe.
In the universe.
Universe.
I can think of no better note on. And of course, as always, Roddy, we've been happy to meet.
Sorry to part.
but happy to meet
Happy
again.
to meet.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thank you all.